Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, Wonderfully Made. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel. I really appreciate it. Today I have for you a get ready with me using all MAC products. And the reason why I call this my back to MAC get ready with me is because I'm kind of trying to go back to my first love when it comes to makeup. And MAC was definitely one of the first brands that I fell in love with. So I think about 98% of the products that I used are from MAC, with the exception of a couple of things, including brushes. I tried to use just about all of MAC brushes as well. And so yes, this is my coppery, bronzy look that I used the warm neutral eyeshadow palette by MAC, which I absolutely love. This is part of MAC's permanent line now, and these eyeshadows are of great quality. I mean, at one point I was using this palette almost every day, and I have some pretty good dents in most of the eyeshadows in this palette, so it's an absolute favorite of mine. And so I created this eyeshadow look using this palette, and I also used this pigment from MAC. I've been seeing quite a few bronzy summertime looks going around YouTube, and I've been loving what I've been seeing, so I wanted to create my own look. And so here it is, my coppery bronzy look for the summertime. And so if you want to see how I created this look, then please stay tuned, and definitely feel free to hit that subscribe button so that you can keep up with what I have going on this channel. Go ahead and give me a thumbs up, comment below, ask any questions that you might have, and I'll do my best to answer them as quickly as I can. Oh, but before I forget, I do have some clips on how I created this hairstyle as well. So I may incorporate that in this video, or I may just do like a hair of the day type of video for, you know, because everybody may not be interested in the natural hair look. So anyway, I'm going to stop rambling and I'm going to get to the video. But as always, I have to remind you that you are fearfully and wonderfully made by God, and He loves you. And I'll see you in the next video. So the first thing that I'm going to do is prime my face, and I'm using MAC's Prep and Prime Natural Radiance Illuminating Base, and I'm using the yellow one. And then I'm going to fill in my brows using the brow pencil by MAC in the shade Spiked. Now this is something I normally do off camera because I am terrible at filling in my brows, and so yes, you will see my brows basically looking a hot mess. I then go in with my MAC blush in the shade Blunt, and then you'll see me using the eyeshadow called Saddle just to fill in the inner parts of my brows, just to lighten it up a little bit. Especially since I dyed my hair, and my hair is a little bit lighter. So yes, that is what I'm using for today, only because I'm trying to use all MAC products, but that's not my normal brow routine. And so now I am using my concealer palette by MAC, and it is the Pro Concealing Correct palette in the shade Medium Deep. And I usually go in at the top with the color that's close to my skin tone and a lighter shade to blend out the lower part of my brows, and I'm using the MAC 212 brush to do this. And so yes, I just try to, you know, clean it up, make it look as neat as possible, and blend those shades out with my fingers. And I will generally continue to tweak my brows and try to make them look as natural as possible throughout my entire makeup application process. And so now I'm taking the orange corrector shade and that deepest shade in this palette just to do a little bit of color correcting. Now I will say that this is not my favorite product to use for color correcting because it doesn't cover my hyperpigmentation as well as I would like it to. It just pretty much blends into my skin and blend away. So now I'm starting on my eyes, and the first thing I'm using is my paint pot in the shade Painterly, and I'm just going to spread this all over my eyes and use my fingers to blend it in. Now for the eyeshadow look. I'm going to be using my Warm Neutral palette by MAC, and I'm using my MAC 213 brush for this first shade that I'm using to highlight my brow bone, and the shade is called Hey. It has a bit of sheen to it, but I don't mind that. And the next color that I'm using is basically the primary color for this eyeshadow look, and it's called Amber Lights, and I'm using my MAC 224 brush to just blend this as my first transitional shade. And yes, it's very odd that I'm using such a metallic shimmery shade as a transitional color, but I love the way this came out. And remember, I was going for a very bronzy, glowy look, you know, on my eyes as well as my face. And then I'm taking that same shade using my MAC 252 brush and placing that color all over the lids. And it's amazing how much of a difference a brush will make, because you can see how the shade looks completely different when I use the MAC 252 brush. Next, I'm using my MAC 242 brush to place the shade Vanilla Extract in my inner tear duct, and then I go in with my 213 brush to just use that shade Saddle to bring some matte warmness to the look. And then I switch brushes and I use the MAC 286 brush to really just blend that shade out. I like to use the MAC 213 brush to deposit color when I want that color to be very concentrated, but the MAC 286 brush is really good at blending those shades out. And then of course I go in with the shade Dance in the Dark, which is a deep brown shade in the outer V area. Next, I'm going to go in with this Pigment by MAC called Rose, and I am using it wet, and I'm just using my finger to basically deposit this pigment all over the center of my lids. And of course, I always bring the color slightly above where my crease is because I have hooded eyes, and I always want the color to show when my eyes are open. And so now I'm just going in with Saddle just to blend the edges of that pigment out a little bit. And if I didn't mention it before, this look was totally inspired by Time the Infamous. She created this look on her light skin, and I loved the way it came out. So I wanted to see how that same look would transfer or translate onto someone with more of a deeper skin tone like I have. So now I'm starting my foundation, and I'm using MAC's Studio Fix Fluid Foundation in the shade NC47. I used to have to mix NC50 and NC45 to get my perfect shade, but this is one of their newer shades within this particular line, and it's a near perfect match for me. So I really like that about it. But in my opinion, I don't get as full of a coverage using this formulation as I do when I used the NC50 and NC45. I don't know, maybe it's just in my mind, but I definitely didn't get the full coverage that I was going for. And so now I'm just using that Conceal and Correct palette again to conceal and highlight. And I mixed the shades NC42 and Rich Yellow, and I am just blending that out with my Sephora Beauty Sponge. And let me mention very quickly that I do have a video coming up comparing different beauty sponges. And so now I'm going in with the deepest shade in that Correct and Conceal palette called NW43 to contour, just for a very subtle cream contour. And then I'm setting the areas that I concealed using MAC's shaping powder in the shade Soft Focus. And I'm using my Wayne Goss airbrush to blend the concealed areas out. And I really like this shaping powder to set my under eyes, but to really highlight the areas, I had to go in with my Sacha Buttercup setting powder. And so now I'm starting on the lower lash line, and so I'm just using my MAC pencil brush to place that paint pot in painterly on my lower lash line, and then I'm using MAC's black eyeliner in Smolder, and I blend that out with Amber Lights all on my lower lash line. And the next shade you'll see me going in with is called Dark Brew, and I'm basically taking that shade on the lower lash line, but just in the outer part of the lower lash line. And then I take the shade Saddle using my MAC 221 brush just to blend that out. And so now I am going in with my black gel liner from MAC called Black Track, and I'm using my MAC 266 brush just to tightline and create a small wing. I am still trying to perfect creating a winged liner, but this brush does make it so much easier. But even with this brush, the struggle is real for me. I always get one side to come out better than the other, and yeah, that's just the nature of my lack of skills when it comes to creating a winged liner. But practice, practice, practice. I'm gonna keep at it until I get it right. And so now I am just brushing away the excess powder that I used to kind of bake the areas where I concealed. And now I'm going in with MAC's blush in the shade Blunt to set the areas where I contoured. And I like this color because it provides a very subtle contour. So now I'm using my MAC 135 powder brush to set my entire face using my MAC Mineralized Skin Finished in the shade Dark. And so here I'm using this blush in the shade Cheeky Bugger, and I was surprised that this is the only pink blush that I own by MAC, and so I had to try to make it work. I also went in with the blush called Ambering Rose before setting my entire face with my MAC Fix Plus. And for my highlighter, I went in with an oldie but goodie, and that is MAC's Gold Deposit. And this was basically the introduction to my obsession with highlighters. And so I'm going in with a little more blush, and I forgot to mention that I was using my MAC 137 brush for my blush. And so now my false lashes are on. The struggle was real as always. But now I'm just going in with some mascara. So my rod rollers are out, my flat twists are out, and now it's time for the lips, and I'm lining my lips using Cork by MAC, and then I use the lipstick in the shade Persistent, and then I just go in the center parts of my lips with this lipstick called Shy Girl, just in the center of my lips, and that completes the look. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.